Pandora's box is about to open wide.
Welcome to Pandora's Box, ladies and gentlemen. It's us, the Pandora's Box guys. Hope you're having a good week out there. Thanks for joining us again today on another pod. How are you guys doing today? You alright?
Excellent.
I'm mighty fine.
Good. I'm a bit sad because I smell a bit weird today.
What?
I smell a bit weird today, yeah. This is full-on first world problems, but like Christmas, you end up just sort of getting like some random mix of stuff, and it's quite hard to keep track of like who's got you what. So I have no idea who got me this aftershave. But I suddenly noticed there I got like a little shelf in my downstairs bathroom, and it's just got like a couple of aftershave things, and it's got like my shaving foam and razor and all the rest of it, antiperspirant, all the essentials.
Yeah, the ones and twos.
And I suddenly saw this little box, and it was something like Australian sandalwood, and I was like, oh, is that an aftershave? I was like, never seen that before. And then I opened it, and I gave it a little sniff. It didn't sort of smell that bad, and I looked at the back, and it was like made from like 100% Australian sandalwood, and I was like, I like my woodland flavours, scents I should say.
Sounds quite natural.
I thought that sounds like it'd be quite nice. So I put it on, instantly regretted it. Instantly regretted it. I've been walking. When you're like really little, and like if you ever go into like an elderly female relative's bedroom or something, and it smells a bit like 50-year-old perfume mixed with
cabinets.
like damp cabinets, dust, and underwear.
Yeah,
that's what it smells like.
Bit musky.
It's a bit musky. So, I mean, all I can say is it's a good thing that technology hasn't advanced to the point where you can smell us through the pod.
If there's any consolation, man, we're in the same room and I haven't smelled you.
Well, I'm glad about that.
Or at least I haven't thought, my eyebrows haven't been raised so far today.
I'm just glad that you weren't like, my water stopped working at the house, so I just haven't had a shower in 5 days.
Oh yeah, no, it's not. Yeah, I mean, arguably it smells worse in a weird way. I mean, it's a very different type of bad smell. I just feel
Funky.
very much like I smell like somebody's like great aunt.
Did you have you ever had like a thing with like aftershave where it just doesn't react good with your smell as well? So they say
that's a thing, don't they?
Oh man, I used to real struggle with that. Like it would smell like lush, like dupe or something, and I'd be like, oh, it smells like real nice. And then I'd put it on, and I would just start smelling like real weird after a few hours.
Really?
And I'm like, that is just not mixing well with just
your natural
my
pheromone.
smell.
So, like you're spoiling or something.
Yeah, like it'd be like a weird, sweet, stinky version of that aftershave.
Well, yeah, because we all
that's a bit like horrible, And
we all do have like a natural pheromones, don't we?
Yeah,
and they do say that aftershave and perfume will smell slightly different on everyone. Like not massively, but slightly.
I wouldn't react to it very well. You can't
ever smell your own smell, but you can always smell other people's. Like everyone has a distinct smell if you were to smell them.
Yeah, it's real bad when you can smell your own smell. That means you smell real bad.
Yeah, something's gone wrong if you can.
Yeah, it's a bit like how your own farts don't really bother you, but other people's farts are horrible.
Yeah.
I always think it's really funny as well when you know someone really, really well and you can tell who's farted just from the scent. You know what I mean?
Sweet
I could
popcorn.
tell one of Josh's farts just from smelling it.
That's so funny.
I would be like, oh, that's a Josh fart.
Well, you smelt enough of them.
Oh man, I have. Literally, I've been
Over
smelling
the
them
years.
since I was like 5 years old.
I've been smelling his farts since I was 5 years old.
See the man over there? I've been smelling his farts since I was 5 years old. Yeah.
Have you ever worn woman's perfume? Either of you?
Why would I do that?
I will say an exception. Like I will say, essential oils. Underrated.
But that's not women's, really, is it?
I know more. Well, I suppose they were introduced.
It's probably just
to me
something
through
that
women,
a woman.
So, like, I think it's more normal for a woman to be wearing.
It's
like
something that, like, a woman would be like, I'm gonna get some essential oils.
Yeah,
I'm gonna make myself smell nice with it. Whereas a man would just be like, Bisto.
Yeah,
I'm gonna make a confession now. I'm gonna make a confession that I can't believe I'm gonna say on the radio. This is so when I used to work at
he's coming out, guys. He's coming out.
When I used to work at Curry's, I would get, instead of like just wearing, obviously when I'm like dated out, I'm wearing my own aftershave, obviously. But when I worked at Curry's, I would put my ex-girlfriend's, like, she had like this vanilla
underwear
spray. She had this like vanilla spray. Now I can't remember what it was. It was the nicest smelling thing mate. It was like heaven in a bottle. It smelled incredible.
How old were you at the time?
Like warm baked bread.
17,
mate. Mate, 17-year-olds should just be rocking Lynx Africa, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it was like probably like a female version, essentially, not a spray.
What, a female version of Lynx Africa?
maybe it's their Lynx Africa. Whatever it was, man.
Isn't that like Charlie?
Phenomenal. It was phenomenal,
right.
And I used to just go into work and like spray that on myself because I
non-stop.
And here was
all
my
day.
The sales
at the start of the morning. My thought process, right, was I want to smell something that smells positive. I'm not trying to impress anyone.
I want to smell.
I'm not like wearing
the sort of thing that
else.
somebody wants to buy a television off.
But I also want to differentiate myself from my normal self.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would rather smell my girlfriend
I like
at the time
me.
than me.
I like that. I like that idea. I also like the idea that you're like trying to trick unwitting male potential buyers. Let's face it, I reckon 75% of people that go in a place like Curry's are going to be men, because men are far more likely to get excited about doing something like buying a brand new television. Not only get excited, but if, say, you do need a new television, the man's going to be like, this is my job.
I was born for this.
You can like decide on the curtains. I'm going to get us a bloody good telly, right? And a man will go in, he'll survey the options, you know. He'll want to get the exact right inchage for that room, make sure it's obviously does everything that they want it to do, know what sort of like, you know, what sort of like high def 4K whatever it's got, what the sound's like, etc. And they want to pick the brains of the young males that work in that place, or females, but probably more likely males. And I like the idea that you're trying to trick them, because let's face it, am I right in thinking that obviously like if you make a sale in somewhere like Curry's, then you almost like are like rewarded in some capacity for that?
Yeah, so you'd get like what would it be, like a reward scheme of like normally more like the care and repair and like that kind of stuff. You might get like if you were to sell someone a broadband.
Right.
I think you might get like £1 compensation.
But there is some sort of incentive, even if it's just like verbally, like you are obviously like a bit of a big, if you're like the highest selling guy in the shop,
you'll be getting more money.
You're the big shot.
Yeah.
You're the top man. You're the one that everyone else is gunning for. You're essentially the world heavyweight champion of Curry's.
At the time I was.
Sales team.
Were you?
I was the top salesman in Curry's.
Mate, it was because of that. It was because of that vanilla scent.
Maybe I never even put it together, but maybe it was.
I think that I like the idea that you were unwittingly thinking, if I smell like an attractive woman, even if I look like a young man, a man's going to come in and be like, I want a telly, please. And then you're going to be like, look at this 55-inch Samsung. This 55-inch Samsung pretty much does everything that this 55-inch Sony does, but the Samsung is 850 quid and the Sony's £3,000. To be honest, mate, I save yourself some money and go for the Samsung. He's going to be like, sold. So I'm going to buy the Samsung happily with a smile on my face from that delicious-smelling young person over there. I think that's what you were doing, man.
Maybe, man.
Or not.
Did Curry sell kitchen appliances as well?
They sell like toasters.
So would you get
I bought my
women in for those
microwave.
things?
I bought my microwave from, I'll have
Or
you know.
did you find that it was still more male orientated for like big appliances as well? For like kitchens
I
and
spent most of my times hilariously, like you were just saying, selling the tellies. Because there was less to learn, and I sort of learnt it all very quick. So that area I knew everything about what was going on. But then if someone came in, like for example the cameras, even though I was like into them, I didn't know anything about them. So if someone came in and asked questions, I would just search up the answers essentially. I wouldn't really know much.
Yeah.
So everyone would have their strengths. Like there were people upstairs that would be selling the fridges and stuff that would know more about them than I would. But
big American style one.
You'd sort of just like go around, like I might just go upstairs for an hour if I would like wanted to, or like you'd sort of move from place to place, I guess.
That's pretty cool.
Can you sort of see what I mean with the scent thing though? Can you see the reasoning behind it?
Kind of, yeah. But I have to say, right. So there are certain scents that I've associated with certain, like girlfriends of mine over the years. For example, I think the equivalent of say like when I was sort of saying that all young men wear Lynx. Lynx Africa is the classic teenage male scent, isn't it? Right. The female equivalent of that is that brand called Charlie. Have you ever had like a girlfriend that's worn Charlie? And there's Charlie Pink, Charlie Blue, and there's Charlie Red. There might be some more. And it's like the Charlie is like the female equivalent of Lynx.
Right. Okay.
Any woman out here that's listening, I mean, I don't even know if we have any female listeners, let's face it. If you're a young lady, would you want to listen to this show? But if any of them are out there, they're like, oh yeah, he knows his stuff.
He knows his stuff.
But anyway, so my first proper girlfriend, Sally, she always used to wear Charlie Red. And had another girlfriend that used to wear Charlie Pink. And although I very much liked those scents at the time, because I'd associate them with my girlfriend, I never thought, I'm going to put that on. I'm not going to have that myself. I'm not going to lie.
You should have.
I'm not going to lie.
It's like a comforting thing. Like, it just was a comforting scent.
I think because it's like vanilla is a bit more of
a... day.
It's not a uniquely female scent. I wouldn't have thought. Like, there's certain things, and that's what I mean. What I was kind of getting at with the essential oils as well. Yeah. Like, you know, for me, I associate them more with women because I've always seen them through women like using them and stuff, and I've always been like, oh, that looks cool, and then smell it and think, oh, that's really nice, and I can imagine putting a bit of that on, like, or whatever. So do you know what I mean? I think for that there's certain scents that are like more universal than but then there's certain scents that are like, that's a female perfume, I'm not going to put that on.
I think it would be different if I was putting on like a Joe Malone perfume and like spraying that, but it just was like a really nice smell. You know?
Yeah, 100%. I did used to have, I remember I bought in the Body Shop once. It was like this unisex lavender spray.
Yeah.
Similar thing, sort of.
Yeah.
Similar thing.
For sure.
It just smelled like lavender, and lavender's real nice.
Yeah.
But I have to say...
That was my thought process. It was like... It probably slightly was a feminine smell, you know, because I think vanilla / lavender would be. But at the same... It's not a masculine scent, I would say. But...
No. At
the same time, it's just a really good scent.
You're not... like with the lavender one, I'm like, you know, you don't sort of like walking around smelling like a lavender plant. It's not the most masculine thing in the world, is it?
No.
But it's undeniably nice.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I think like if you're saying, and I wouldn't wear it like every day, but you know, if you're like going out for a meal or something. So, and I remember I always used to keep it in the glove box of my car.
If the occasion suited.
Say I'd have like my more like masculine scents at home that I've always liked. So I've always really liked Victor Rolf Spice Bomb. Anybody that knows that one,
Spice Bomb,
man, it is.
Mate,
so good.
I need to get into it. I never wear anything. I could probably count on two hands.
He's not even got his pants on right now. He hasn't. Waist down, he's naked, guys.
I've got some Mitchum like armpit like stuff, and that is
the most like stereotypical like dad thing. I've got some Mitchum on. Got some Mitchum roll-on
48 hours.
I've got some Imperial leather. Imperial leather, like the old
Imperial leather.
You like slap on your face. Like
I've started using tallow now, tallow soap. And it's really good. It's
beef on your face.
Yeah, like soap made out of tallow.
Imagine if you got attacked by a carnivorous animal.
It was hilarious the other day because like we've got tallow cream as well for Ruben, and he had his nappy off, and like Rupert just went straight over to him and started licking his ass because he had tallow cream. I was like, boof, kicked in like no,
mate. At least he was clean. Yeah. At least he was clean. Licked clean by your dog. Yeah.
But that's like, you know,
that's like a medieval car wash. It's like a medieval car wash, but for kids, for babies. Rather than just going through a thing and it's like soap and things, it's just like rub a load of tallow on a kid and let your dog lick it clean.
That's it, man. But talking of tallow though, do you know there's all these like products now, like face products, makeup, like absolutely everything, like soap, like there's the amount of chemicals that are in those products is like crazy, and like what that will actually do to your skin.
Do you know what I've heard that it does?
Makes the frogs gay.
Makes the frogs gay.
Yeah, I've heard. Yeah, no, I've heard that it can it lower your testosterone.
Yeah, but that's what I mean, like all these chemicals and stuff, and we were looking into it because tallow is so good, like for your skin and stuff. Like, because apparently it helps your cells regenerate like quicker and easier. So your skin cells,
like Piccolo.
Piccolo
would Dragon Ball Z. If he gets like if his arm gets
animal
chopped
based,
off,
like
he can grow it back.
That's it. And like so and almost what we were saying about we've said on the pod before about like people in like the 60s and 70s, and you see them and they've got a mostly animal based diet and they're quite skinny still.
Yeah.
That would be a lot of tallow, a lot of butter, a lot of milk, a lot of these
eggs, meat,
things that are like natural animal products.
Milk.
Our bodies can like absorb them so easily. Like makeup used to be made out of tallow. So any around the wartime and stuff, and like makeup that women would have, they'd be made out of natural products and tallow, and their skin was better. And it's because
whale fat as well.
But they wouldn't know why scientifically. But it was always made. The makeup stuff was made out of tallow, and they had really good skin. And now they've like kind of scientifically proven why, and it's because they've got this like cell regeneration stuff in it.
Yeah.
So I just think like
it wasn't just tallow, but it was all animal products. So I know that in America they used a lot of beaver tail. I think they used to use like melted down. Bear fat. Also spermaceti from whales, which is like an oily substance.
Spermaceti from whales.
No, like whales the animal, not Wales the place. I knew that, but I just wanted to speak Welsh, right?
Because it was the first thing that came into my head, and I was like, obviously, no, he's talking about the whale, like a whale as in an animal.
That's one of the main reasons why whaling used to be so big, was because obviously, for like Europeans and Americans, we've never been keen on eating whale, unlike say like Eskimos, or like people who I think even from like the Faroe Islands and Japanese.
Like whales.
Faroe Islands, Iceland, Japan, Eskimos, Inuits. But we used to mainly do whaling. We used to mainly hunt whales for the spermaceti that would be then used in soap, perfume, like loads of stuff. Like oil lamps. It was like almost like it was used in so much stuff. But obviously we had to look for alternatives because loads of like whale species start becoming like super endangered and that. But they used to do like lots of animal products. But when I put on say like an aftershave, I try and be sensible about it, because obviously nobody wants their hormones to be affected, or if you do, you're crazy. So what I'll try and do is I'll spray it more on like my clothes and actually my skin. You know, like whatever I'm wearing, I'll like spray it.
And then you probably won't get the thing that I did, because I'd always spray it on my neck, and there was obviously this weird reaction with my thing that I didn't like. You're not going to get that as much. You're just going to get the actual smell of the perfume
on it, like on your shirt or whatever, your t-shirt, your shirt, and then take it off and you can't really smell it anymore, and then it's not like sinking into your skin. That's my thought process anyway.
I do love a good aftershave. You put on a good aftershave and you just feel better.
I like my little collection I've got.
Yeah.
I've got a nice little collection, I'm not going to lie. Yeah, I've got some nice ones.
I've got Blueberry Sport that I've had for about 15 years.
Burberry Sport?
Yeah.
Burberry Sport.
Sorry, Karen, yeah, Burberry
That's
Sport.
That's like the Hartley Puddly in and you wanted.
Literally, I got that probably in Hartlepool.
Did you?
Yeah.
Mate, that's
and I've still got about like a couple of millimeters in there left.
Bourbons. Mate, you're saving that for a special occasion. What is gonna, in your mind, now that it's almost been, because I feel like if you make it last that long, now it's gonna have to be a hell of a special event. Do you know what I mean, for you to use that last bit? So what in your mind would warrant the use of your last bourbons spray?
Probably like
going to the moon.
Probably like a wedding or something.
Probably like a wedding or something. Probably like a wedding or something. Oh yeah, fair enough. Super reasonable, to be honest, man. Sense. Super reasonable. Yeah. Well,
I've heard people say, now this is sort of like to do with what we're talking about, animal products and stuff, that we don't actually need shampoo and conditioner.
Right.
Like that apparently shampoo and conditioner, if you weren't to use it, like you'd get greasy after like a week or so, and then after a certain amount of time it would just sort itself out.
I have heard that as well. I don't know enough about it to have like an educated opinion on it.
Ballsy enough to try it myself.
Yeah, I know people. Who do I know that have tried it? That I definitely have like seen like known someone who's done that and just not washed her hair for like years, and her hair looked awesome. And I was thinking, what the hell? Like, really, you know,
because like your natural oil was like balanced out.
Yeah, it didn't look like real greasy and stuff. But I've
heard that as well. Like people that like get too used to say putting Vaseline on their lips, whatever, if they get cracked lips, like it
When you
obviously
stop
it does
using
provide relief, but it actually almost like exacerbates the issue. So then when you don't have the Vaseline, your lips will crack way easier. And then if you can almost go cold turkey and wean yourself off the Vaseline, your lips will just slowly get better again. And I do think this will make sense in a way, because I mean, I've never really suffered from like cracked lips or anything like that, but obviously I've just never used anything like Vaseline. Whereas I remember mate Jake from back in school, he used to apply Vaseline to his lips, and he said it's because he would always get cracked lips. And then I remember, I think I remember even having the conversation with him back in school, and he was like, yeah, I need to like come off it, because I know that if I like just go cold turkey,
Interesting.
It'll be fine again.
So weird how your body
it's just
adapts
getting past
to something.
that first month.
Yeah.
I've got lip balm.
Yeah?
Yeah, I get like, particularly if I'm not walking, I reckon I must lick my lips a lot. You know, like
whenever I look at you, you're just like this.
Yeah. That's what I'm doing when I'm not on camera.
Just every now and again, like a lizard.
But like,
yeah,
if I'm like out in when I travel, for example, if I'm like walking around all day and the wind's just in my face, by the time I get home after like 3 days, my lips will just be like in a mess.
That's mad.
They'll just be like.
It's weird. Some people like are super affected by the wind as well. Like Meg, like her ears in the wind, it like proper like. She needs to be like wearing a hat or have her ears covered, because her ears are like super sensitive to like the wind like blowing on them, not like cold wise, but actually like the wind going in her ear and that. It's like really weird. I never heard that either. I was like,
never
what?
heard of that.
She's always.
I've never thought my inner ear feels a bit weird because of this wind.
She's like,
I don't know if I get it from wind, but I get it from cold.
Right.
I get like headaches like really bad in my ears if it's like
surely
too
it's
cold.
an earache if it's in your ear.
It would like go.
It would almost resonate
like
into your brain.
Yeah, and it would just like start off by hurting your actual ears, and then it would sort of like progress into like your head and like.
That sounds horrible, man.
Yeah, it's not nice. That's why I don't run in the winter.
I know they're all connected.
Like my ears would just be finished.
Man, that is crazy. Man, that's a mental issue. Do you reckon that's like something like almost like that you could be born with? You know, like almost like a very mild.
It's really weird because I'll be out in the full on like on a massive walk and be like. You know, with the wind blasting on me, and I'm just like, it's normal. But if she's like that, she's like, oh, like I've got to like have my ears covered, like, you know, and stuff. So it's like really weird.
Buy a really nice set of earmuffs.
I did, but they were the wrong ones. They weren't like they didn't like cover like our like these headphones. They were like earmuffs that just like that fluffy that just like kind of flat on your ears.
She couldn't hear anything.
So then it was just like what didn't sit nice, you know. So
maybe she could just go out with headphones on.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Actually, cool. Yeah, the Sony noise cancelling ones, they'd be real good for it actually. But man,
they're crazy.
And just
I broke mine, Drew.
I broke mine as well.
I fell over. I was on a bench and the bench like collapsed at the gym and I fell back. And then the
I have to say, when you told me that, and now you've said that yours are broken as well, I wasn't really impressed with the durability of that, because I thought there's like I think that in this day and age, especially if you spend like a lot of money on a product, you should be able to drop it from say waist height onto the floor regardless of surface, and it should be okay.
I agree.
I think if you're spending a lot of money on something,
a break like something like breaking on it like that, mine's like the left ear just stopped working, which is like real annoying.
Well, in a way, that's even worse.
Yeah, I know it is. But I think what it was is because when I'm in bed, sometimes I wear them in bed, and I'll always like still just like have my head on the pillow sometimes, and just like lean with the like the headphones like on my pillow, and I think I've done something to the wiring inside of something, because sometimes if I'd like knock it like that, it'd come back on, but now it's just like stopped doing that altogether. But it's so annoying because I'd use them all the time because they're so handy, like being wireless as well, and real good sound quality and stuff, and noise cancelling. Because I bought the little in-ear ones as well, which were like the Sony ones, and they were like 300 quid, but I hate them. They're horrible. They're like bulky and they're not the same sound and stuff.
Don't feel nice.
Nah, and it's like such a waste of 300 quid. I got
I got like little in-ear ones that cost me like 30 quid, and they're pretty good. Because I'm like, I don't really care too much about, do you know what I mean? They literally cost me like 30 quid off Amazon. They got a long life like battery, do you know what I mean? And then it's got the little thing that you put in it, which charges them up, and then about like once every fortnight I'll actually have to charge the actual thing up, depending on. But mate, and it charges up in like 10 minutes as well.
That's
like
so good,
mate. It's amazing. And then I've got like some like bigger ones, like Philips ones, which again I don't think cost me much money, which are like Bluetooth wireless ones. I bought 2 pairs, one for me and Em, like probably in about 2017. Still going strong. I use them when I'm mowing the lawn to listen to podcasts and stuff. Mate,
That's
really
what you
good.
need,
They're not like sound cancelling or anything, but they're like, let's put it this way: if you had them on like full volume, you'd blow your eardrums out.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? So it's like it's as loud as you need it to be. Sound quality is good enough. That's the thing as well. I don't really use them for music, so I don't care about the sound quality being like insane.
Yeah,
it's more like, if late at night I'm in bed and I want to watch like a podcast, listen to a podcast, or watch a video on YouTube while Em's asleep next to me, I'll whack it in. Or if I'm travelling, like when we went to London, you know, I have him on the coach or mowing the lawn. I just want it to be loud enough when I'm listening to whatever podcast I'm listening to.
Yeah.
I get like, so if I don't have headphones like this or like the Sony ones, if I get the in-ear ones, which I'm having to use at the moment, like old wired Apple ones, my ear, after like a couple of days, my ears will just be blocked.
Serious?
From like earwax. So I just like will wake up and I can't hear.
That's
which is crazy. But if I wear the like over ear ones,
right,
then I'm fine. There's because my Sony still like work, they just don't turn on. So
you're
I've
saying
just changed to use them into like a PC now, so I just plug them in and I can use them as like wired ones, but not as wireless.
So the ones that you've put in your ear, they make you more earwaxy. Is that what you're saying?
If I put in ear ones, apparently it's something to do with like it pushes earwax all into like a condensed thing.
That doesn't sound nice.
No, and it just means that it like completely blocks your ears.
That doesn't sound nice.
I notice if I wear
damages your
headphones
ears.
too much, even over ear ones, and like the Sony ones, I'll get a bit more earwax. Like not loads more, but sometimes like it's just like a bit more. But
it's a bit weird. Like what even is earwax? You know?
It's to protect your ears.
Right.
It's to protect your eardrum from damage. Obviously, your eardrum's a very sensitive thing, and it sort of lubricates it.
Right.
And at the same time gives it like an added layer of protection. It's a bit like when you buy like a something like a phone or anything with a screen, and it'll always have with the peel-on layer, you know. And it's very simply, it's just so that if it gets scratched or anything like that, it's not the actual screen that's getting damaged, is it? It's just that tiny thin membrane. It's a similar thing to that. Obviously, if once you go deaf, you're never going to get your hearing back again, well, unless there's like some crazy technological advancement. So it's just like a bit of, it's sort of like it keeps your ears moist, and it also just keeps them a bit protected.
That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense.
But it's one of those things, isn't it? You don't want too much or too little earwax. But they always say, don't they, that like, you know, like you'd see people, I think it was more of a thing when we were like younger, like a thing to do back in like the 80s and 90s, but you'd see people like used to put like cotton earbuds and stuff in their ear, and they actually that's really fucking. I mean, really bad for you.
Pushing it all.
You don't want to be doing that.
No.
You're like you're sort of like ramming your eardrum with this foreign object, which is what you really don't want to be doing. That. And also you're like you don't want to take away too much earwax. Like obviously if it's like to the point where like you're looking at someone's ear and you can see a big glob of earwax, like you shouldn't have that much, but like. Yeah, you shouldn't. Do you know what I mean? Like, you shouldn't. It should just be like it should have a nice level. It's a bit like oil in a car. You know, you don't want to go too low or too high.
I think that's the sort of similar thing they say that in-ear like headphones do. Is it just like pushes everything down?
It's making me not want to use my in-ear headphones now.
I remember I did because my ears were so blocked that I went to like the doctors about it because they were gonna like syringe them, but they don't want to do that because apparently that damages your ears. You have to get them like vacuum now, but they were saying to me when I went there like. That's why you shouldn't wear in-ear ones because they're like really bad for your ears.
There's those like holistic version of
beeswax candles,
and it's like it almost looks like a big freaking like
paper thing,
like spliff, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, beeswax.
You put it in your ear, you lie on the side, you light it, and it burns down.
Yeah,
but I don't know enough about it. It might be like complete.
I've done that numerous times.
Like rubbish.
Yeah, and like because I remember Carmen like. First introduced me to that.
I could so imagine Calum doing
and it's really weird because you got to like lie there on your side and you got this little disc that like because like the ash falls on it and stuff. And I remember like we brought it all around to Cannington once, and like my mum did it and my sisters did it and all that kind of stuff. But then like after, my mum was saying that she had like problems with her ears, and she thinks it was because of doing that, because it's almost like you're messing with something natural. Like it had enough. It was all right anyway, and she was kind of just doing it for the novelty. But it sucks it's like the flame burns down and creates like a chimney thing, like where it will create the air that from the just the way it is in the tube. It will like suck up your warm earwax like into the stick, and then there's this little like filter bit at the bottom that's almost like a filter from a cigarette, like a like a big fat one, and all the wax will get caught on that, and you can you open up the candle, the earwax candle after, and you can see all the wax that's come out of your ear, and it's like crazy. There's like loads of it, that's all just been sucked up.
I think with things like that, I just think if your ears are okay, don't mess with them.
Yeah,
because I think your ears are so important. Not only is hearing such a precious thing, but obviously it's really important as well for your equilibrium. And for anyone that's ever had bad vertigo. Ear problems, it gives you bad, anything to do with your equilibrium. Obviously vertigo would be one of them. But it's even just walking in a straight line and balancing can become a real issue. The ability to just stand on one foot, or as I said, even just walk in a straight line. I hate that idea that would be really horrible. You'd almost feel like you were on a rocking ship or something.
I think of it with frequencies as well. Whenever I'm mixing and I see all the EQ and that, and I'm listening to a track and stuff, I'm I wonder if my hearing is deficient in certain frequencies, and I'm mixing the track to almost compensate for that. And say you're in a room, and each room has its own reflection and with more bass in it and stuff, and you can if you mix it in a room, then you're going to mix it to the room sound, rather than to what the actual sound is. So I know that people say that's super important when you're mixing with speakers in a room. So do you know what I mean? I wonder if there's a definitive human hearing thing that you will pick up these certain frequencies. And you can be your top end could be a bit out or something frazzled.
Yeah, I think that it's probably quite plausible. Yeah. Do you guys want to hear? I want to ask you guys a question. Because I think the answer is pretty mind blowing. Okay. What's the longest you think a polar bear has ever been documented to swim?
Ooh.
What do you think is the longest? No, in terms of distance, mileage.
20 miles.
What do you reckon, Bullwinkle?
Oh, it's a lot more than that. I think. I remember when we went to Iceland, they told us that they could swim from country to country.
Right.
And stuff like that, which is insane. I don't know. 10,000.
Man, that's ridiculous.
I couldn't really think of what's a measurement of
I think that's further than that'd be swimming further than swimming across the Atlantic Ocean.
That's quite far. I don't know, from a country to a country, just whatever sort of guess that would be.
Right. Well, it is a staggering amount. Obviously, depending on the country, it could they could technically swim from a country to country. They could easily swim the English Channel. Let's put it that way. The largest documented swim by a polar bear that was tagged in Alaska was 426 miles.
Wow.
Can you believe that?
Wow.
426 miles of pure swimming without taking a break. That's mad, isn't it?
Crazy when you think of the sea being volatile as well.
What strong swimmers.
Yeah, and
what strong swimmers,
what's given them their sense of where they're going. Because they're obviously going.
That's a very interesting point, isn't it?
You're in a ship. You're heading somewhere, don't you? But how would a polar bear know if it's going hundreds of miles out?
Internal navigation, man. I think that because we all do have an internal navigation, but I think obviously we don't rely on ours as much as animals do. I mean, you could say it's the same thing with a bird, isn't it? So there are lots of migratory birds that spend winter in Africa and then they'll spend the summer in the UK, and that's mad, really.
Still,
that's mad.
It blows my mind with pigeons as well, that they just know where their home is. You can have a pigeon in its coop and that's its home, and then you can go to up north and let it go, and it will still find its way home.
Or literally courier pigeons, or in the day they used to use ravens as well, didn't they? It's you could literally train a pigeon or a raven or something to fly to an exact... I could write a letter,
that's insane,
tie it to a raven's leg, and then send it to your house, and then you just arrive at your house and then come back fine. That's
the way they do it, though. But with the they do it with pigeons from that place. On Game of I'm just thinking about Game of Thrones wise, they would have pigeons from King's Landing or something. So the pigeon that they have. So if they want to get a message to King's Landing, they'll take their King's Landing pigeon and send it, or crow or
that
whatever.
makes sense.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I don't think it's like I don't think you could train it to go somewhere specifically, like as in like go this place, then go that place. Like they'd have their one place that they would you know, you'd have.
I have to say,
ravens are mental.
I have to say, I've never really looked into it that much, but I do.
Yeah,
I do think
that
it is crazy.
Thing. They've got the
homing instinct. Yeah. I know exactly what you're saying, but I do think it is amazing. Like, if anything, I actually think it's more amazing though that, as I said, you do get migratory birds that say, you know, they know like, oh, it's getting a bit chilly in the UK. It's getting to like autumn now. It's time to make the fly, and then they will fly to like a specific place in Africa, and they just know the way.
Is it swallows that sleep in the air as well? Like when they're flying, I think there are some birds.
Yeah, I think there are some birds.
They literally will stay in the air for like 10,000 miles, and some crazy. Like from they won't actually land. Yeah. They'll just do that.
I think there's several bird species that can. Yeah.
There's ones that like fly pretty much the whole distance of the world, isn't there?
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, and don't
land. There are some birds that spend like the majority of their lives flying, and they hardly ever land. Yeah,
it's crazy. I think ravens are pretty cool as well. Like the Vikings used to have, where they'd send them out to find land, and then like come back to the boat. Like that's kind of mental.
That's so cool.
It's not even like a location that they've learned where they are. Like they've just sort of know where the boat is.
Well, it's sort of a very simple sort of it's a very simple sort of like premise, I guess, in a way, isn't it? It's like because ravens are a land bird, it's like they'd send the ravens out every now and again. If the raven would come back, it would mean there'd be nowhere for it to land. If it doesn't come back, they'll just they'll send their ship in the direction that the raven was flying, even if it's through mist, because then there's a pretty good chance that they're going to find land, because the raven would come back if there wasn't any land in sight. And I guess the raven senses are a lot keener, so even if it's like really foggy and misty, all you need to do is just basically head in the trajectory that raven was last seen flying.
Yeah, salmon is a weird one as well, isn't it? That they will go back to where they were born. Like, because you think when you're born, like what kind of like memory or consciousness do you have like when you're literally just born and you're this newborn thing? But
and they swim up rivers and everything. It's brutal.
They'll swim out like miles and miles again, but will come back to breed in the same part of the river that they were born in.
Have you heard about how they're basically like zombies by the time they finish their swim?
That's insane.
They start rotting alive. What? Did you know that? Did you know that? I don't know loads about it. Would you mind looking into me, like rotting, like salmon rotting while they're alive?
Can I just add this before I search it? Otherwise I'll lose it. This is the bird I was talking about, the Arctic tern. Have you heard about this bird?
No. Oh, I think I've heard of it in the past.
The Arctic tern holds the record for the longest bird migration. They migrate between their Arctic breeding grounds and the Antarctic.
Wow.
They fly from the Arctic to the Antarctic.
The globe.
That's insane, isn't it?
I wonder if they always go like the same trajectory. Do you know what I mean? Or if they can switch it up. Do you know what I mean?
44,000 miles each year.
That is mad, isn't it? That's mad.
Insane.
That is so crazy. Yeah, have a look up like salmon rotting while they're alive, because I know it's like this weird thing where they become almost like in this zombie state, and it takes so much out of them to swim up the rivers and swim up streams and to actually get there. And obviously loads of them die while they're trying to do it, and if they don't die from natural causes, they die because like bears eat them and stuff. And I know that they start rotting, and it's like really weird.
Salmon can decay while still alive, especially after spawning, a phenomenon often referred to as zombie salmon.
There you go.
This occurs because their bodies begin to deteriorate after spawning, and they are still capable of swimming and breathing even as their organs shut down and their flesh starts to rot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can just come across like this weird zombie salmon in like Alaska and other places like that.
It's like mixing,
and they're like rotting and they look all messed up, but they're just moving around like actual like a freaking zombie. Like, that's crazy, isn't it? Their organs are shutting down, but they're still like moving. That's crazy, isn't it? That's quite creepy, don't you think? Yeah, I think it's really interesting as well. Well, like interesting / sketchy that there are like places in like America, for example, where like bull sharks are the most aggressive of all shark species, and they also have the highest testosterone of any animal on the planet, naturally, which is quite crazy in itself, isn't it? Like super roided up sharks. But they go into fresh water to spawn, don't they? So because the sea has obviously bigger predators and is more dangerous than rivers, they go to and because they're the only shark that we know of that can breathe in both salt water, brackish water and fresh water. So they swim into fresh water and they can breathe. Obviously, with most sharks, if you put them in fresh water, they just die. and then they give birth to their live young. They give birth to their young, and then they hatch, and then they don't go into the sea until they're like 6 foot or. I think
there's certain crocodiles that do that as well. When I was in Costa Rica, I remember them telling me about it, and where we were at this river was like close to the ocean, and he was saying that I don't know whether it'd still be salt water or something.
Saltwater crocodiles. I mean, yes, it probably
they would basically come more in to have the babies and stuff, and then go out into the sea. I'm saying. I
mean, obviously, one of the dangerous things about saltwater crocodiles is that you can encounter them anywhere. So there are places in, say, like the Northern Territories in Australia where they found big salties like miles inland, but you'll find the majority of them like in the sea, or at least like around the coast. You know, because obviously they are semi-aquatic animals, so they obviously do like to bathe. They're not going to spend all their time in the water. You know, they like to bathe like on land, like on the beaches and stuff. But then they'll get in the sea
their bones.
But yeah, I know that I've listened to like podcasts with like hunters and things like an Australian hunters, and they'll say that they have found like big salties like 5-10 miles inland. You know, which is crazy in a way, because obviously they can't
so far away from the water.
So they must have spent a long time walking inland. Yeah. You know,
what for?
It almost makes you wonder why they've done it.
Yeah.
I guess they've been trying to exploit a niche. You know,
in search of like hunting. Something.
Maybe like they think, right, if you go to a place like that, then maybe some other animals like wallabies and kangaroos will be like they'll lower their guard. They'll lower their guard at that fresh watering hole, and also there will be less salty, so maybe there's less competition. Whereas like around the coast, where there's like literally thousands of them, and there's also like sharks in the water, like great whites.
Oh yeah, so they'd still be heading for like water, but just water inland.
Oh yeah, yeah. They'd find.
I thought you meant just actual land then, like without I was like, cool, that'd be pretty mental.
No, because they
golf courses and stuff.
They always attack from the water, don't they? Okay, so they'll like ambush you. They'll find like a massive pond or a lake or like a river or something, or a swamp, and they'll sit there and they'll wait. You know.
What was you said earlier, brackish water? What's that?
So that's basically like just a term for where there are obviously lots of places in the world where salt water meets fresh water, at the end of rivers and stuff like that. And there, the water is what's called brackish water, and it's basically like a combination of salt and fresh water. But I think obviously, just like any other ecosystem on the planet, there are animals that have almost like evolved to thrive purely in brackish water. You know, so
the brackish newt.
And here we have the brackish newt, the common brackish newt.
I think it's cool. I'm not sure what ocean it is. There's an ocean where like one of the waters is like really blue, like crystal blue, and the other one is like green. And there's a point where they meet in the water.
And it's just like a line, I've seen that.
It's crazy, isn't it?
I can't remember what ocean it is or what sea it is. Try
and see if I can find it. But
try and find that, man, I always think that's like sketchy, though, going back to that fact about bull sharks, because there's been people that haven't there, like in like Florida, and like as you do, like teenagers and people in their early 20s and that, and they've just been like found like rivers and stuff, and they're like, have some beers, having a party, and they've like jumped in the river. And then, like, the last thing you expect is to be, like, attacked by a bull shark. And there's been people that have been, like, attacked by freaking bull sharks. And some of them aren't even small. They're, like, adult bull sharks that happen to have been in the water at the time because they've been in there to give birth. So they'll get attacked by, like, a freaking 12-foot long, like 1,000 pound bull shark. That's,
God
got more testosterone than anything on the planet.
Can you see that?
Yeah, I can see that.
Cool, look at that.
Does it say what sea that is or what ocean?
It's the Pacific and the Atlantic.
It's where the Pacific meets the Atlantic, is it?
Yeah, they just don't mix at all.
Isn't that weird?
It's insane.
Isn't that strange, eh? Isn't that so weird?
Yeah.
Does it say whereabouts, like where the Pacific meets the Atlantic?
If I can find out more. I want to know exactly why.
Because obviously the Pacific is like in between America and Asia, isn't it? Like that whole area, like around Australia, New Zealand. That's obviously the Pacific. In between, to the east of Asia and to the west of America, and obviously the Atlantic is from the west of the UK and obviously like Africa, for example, and Europe, and to the east of the United States.
So it says, while it may appear that the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans don't mix, they do indeed mix, but it's a slow and complex process. The visual separation can be attributed to differences in density and temperature, making it seem like the water doesn't mix, but it gradually does. So I guess the middle point, there must still be like a bit of like joined water, even though it doesn't look like that, which is kind of crazy.
It's interesting, isn't
it? It says that it meets, the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans meet at Cape Horn, the southernmost tip of South America. Here, a strong current known as the circumpolar current carries water from the Pacific into the Atlantic.
Wow. Very cool, man. Very cool, my friend. Yeah, you wouldn't think that it would almost like just be such like a radical almost visual contrast between the two, would you?
When you say you said before the truth is stranger than fiction, like I think of that sometimes when I watch these like nature documentaries and that. Like we were watching one called like Tiny World yesterday, and it was it's narrated by Paul Rudd, and it's just
I love Paul Rudd.
Yeah, me too, man.
What a likable guy.
So yeah, it's like it's on Apple TV because I've got a subscription for that like recently.
Yeah.
And it's just you just see like the way that nature works and how like I said before as well about like something always eating something else and how it like eats itself and how a tree falls in the middle of the rainforest and then all the things that grow from it and the animals that grow from it and the way that the animals work and stuff, and there's these bees that will go into a certain type of flower, certain types of orchids for the pollen, and then fall into the center of the pollen, center of the flower to drink the pollen, but they can drown in that center, so they have to like crawl out, but they can only crawl out a specific way through the orchid, and when they go right through the center, like the only point that they can crawl out of, the orchid deposits 2 specks of like pollen things on the back of the bee for it to take it to the next plant, but like specific 2 little like balls, and you just see it and you think, oh my god, like that's like that whole plan, like they've created the pollen for the bee to go in, and they know that they're going to deposit those parts like on the bee specific in that way. And usually I just think of pollen as like because bees do that with flowers, don't they? But they do it with loads of different flowers, and it's more like dust or whatever. It's like the pollen are like these tiny little particles, but on this orchid plant it's 2 specific ones that you can see on the back of the bee like really clearly. And then they just take that to the next flower orchid flower that they go to, and then or like a hummingbird, and there's this certain type of hummingbird that has a curved beak that can go into a certain type of flower that other hummingbirds can't go into, and then there's these tiny little mites that live in the flower, and the mites will crawl up the beak of the hummingbird and then go into the nostril of the hummingbird and then get to the next flower by when it goes, you think,
well, and that's how they
get around,
germinate.
That's like,
they're just literally like catching a ride.
Yeah, they're catching a ride to the next flower.
Wow, that's mad. That is crazy. Like literally like you're jumping on like the London Underground.
Yeah, and they've got these
like there's just
amazing
generic stops and
so a little hummingbird, specific type, and it goes and this video showed it like crawling up, tiny. You know how tiny hummingbirds are anyway. So the camera that they must have used to get this shot in the flowers and that, and it's all amazing when you see it. And this is
microscopic
just nature.
World.
Yeah, and it's just like you think this is incredible that how evolution has made that happen, that those 2 specific species work symbiotically with each other and stuff, and it's like it's mad to me. It's like you go, huh? Like, when you watch
it's funny because obviously were you saying that Paul Rudd narrates that, it almost reminds me of Ant-Man the movie, because what the movies Ant-Man show you is obviously when he goes down to like being as small as an ant, or in some cases he actually goes down to as small as an atom, right? It shows that like it's almost like there's a world just like ours, so that how there's animals that are like a similar size to us, and we're looking at things on our plane. So our plane is so like anything from like the size of say like a rodent right up to like a blue whale. They're like almost like they're all sizes that we can almost like see, and then we can assess what they are. But on like a much more like say like an insect level, there's that equivalent, and then there's even that equivalent on like a microscopic level. And that the Ant-Man movies really show that.
Like we're a part of an organism of a being.
Yeah, we wouldn't know. Like if there's just like if there's an animal that's as big
space
to us
giant
as like we are to a microorganism, and that we just can't even see it because we can't really, like, our senses can't take in the information of like a being that large. Yeah, I mean because again they do sort of like portray that in the Ant-Man movie, which was in my opinion one of the coolest things of the movie.
I need to watch that. I've never seen it.
Have you? Mate, you'd love the Ant-Man movies, I reckon, Drew. They're really good as well.
What movie?
Yeah, there's I've seen all of them. I really like. They were some of my favorite Marvel movies because I just think Paul Rudd is such a likable guy and he's such a good actor. And there are actually just really good movies. There's the more the movies go on, so not so much in the first one, but in the second and the third one, they really go into, Drew, like how mad it is. Because basically, once he shrinks down to a certain size and it gets into like the atomic level and he goes into like the atomic realm, mate, it's like you can defy the laws of physics. But not just that, like the space-time continuum and like so you could time travel. Like in that level and stuff, it's like it's crazy, and there's entire realms and like universes on the atomic level that if you're that size is like the universe that we're living in.
The
quantum realm. It's mental. It's mental.
Crazy, and I find it mad as well. Like there was another bit in this tiny world thing of like where in the savannah where when the rains come and it's all completely arid and dry, and then all of a sudden grass just forms and that just really quickly and then dies out quite quickly as well. But how the elephants will leave these massive imprints in the mud, and then whole ecosystems will form in their prints of elephants, like because of the water that's left in there. And there was these little like groundwater shrimp like things, and they look weird, and I'd never seen one before. And it's just the whole completely different types of animals that you have in the world. And it was saying these have been forming since the dinosaurs used to leave tracks.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Wow. And it was almost like these little ecosystems that form from a certain condition that happens. And I think, like, where do they come from? How do they evolve? Like, before the elephants stood there, like, how did these shrimps come about to be in that place? Do you know what I mean? It's like really weird stuff like that. It's almost like there's a potential in the ground.
There's a potential for everything. Like,
and
there's always a niche to be filled.
Yeah, like dung beetles will be on the poop in minutes, and I'm like, all right, well, where were they before the animals were migrating and going across that specific part? Do you know what I mean? It's like, I
think it's almost like probably a similar thing to like pollinating. Do you know what I mean? I think it's just like the ecosystem is so balanced and it works together so much. It's probably similar to like how, you know, once you've got one daisy in your garden, another one's going to pop up. Before you know it, you've got like hundreds of daisies in your garden. It's like, do you know what I mean? You don't really see the process. It's like, well, how is that happening? But I think it's probably a similar thing. Like, if you looked into it, it'd be easy enough to figure it out. But it reminds me of what you were saying about the elephants. It's like, you know, like Colossal Biosciences, we were talking about them a couple of weeks ago, because obviously they've they've made dire wolves essentially, or I know some people would argue about that, but you know, they've created this what essentially is a dire wolf, and obviously they're trying to bring back woolly mammoths as well. And from the sounds of things, they say it's like, you know, it's definitely going to happen. But one of the things that they say it's going to do is that they'll have like a really positive impact on the ecosystem, where they're going to put them. They're only going to put them in places where woolly mammoths used to live, in similar climates to the ones, you know, that they're going to. You know, they're only going to put them in climates that were very, very similar to the ones that used to thrive in. And they said that the positive impacts are going to have in, just reminded me of, because you were saying about the elephant's footprints, is they were saying that, like, the mammoths walking around, the impact of them like stepping on the floor and then essentially like crushing the undergrowth and the vegetation before, it was something like it's going to release, like there's like gases under the soil and stuff, like natural gases, and it says it's going to like almost like release them, almost like, I guess, if like you stood on a whoopee cushion and like the air would go out of it, like, just think of that analogy, and it like releases it, and obviously you can't see it, but it releases all this like beneficial natural like gas and like chemicals into the atmosphere, which then apparently has a really, really positive impact. And then when you mix that with the fact that they naturally like rub up against trees to like scratch itches and then that knocks trees down, which then allows sunlight in, which then there are certain plants and stuff that need a certain amount of sunlight to grow in forests. But if the trees can just grow and there's no natural beasts that are like large enough to like push these trees down, then the trees get a bit out of control. And the only thing you're left up with is things like moss and trees, whereas obviously you want that biodiversity. So it saves almost like what we have to do, especially in countries like England, obviously. You need to rely heavily on like the forest commissions and like tree surgeons and stuff to like come and like bulldoze trees down, knock them down, not to destroy forest habitat, but to actually keep it thriving, because otherwise it becomes like diseased and over-inhabited. Whereas what you want is like, you know, you'll go for like, say, like you see it up the Quantocks all the time, you go for like a walk up the Quantocks or some other woodland place in the UK. And they'll have just like sort of cut down 50% of the trees, or like, you know, and it's like they're actually doing it because obviously it's like it makes the woodland healthier rather than. But if you have those big animals, you don't need to. It will just sort of sort
itself out. They do it in a
out.
natural way. It is crazy how like
cool,
nature is almost always just keeping itself in balance. Like, however, even if it seems like it's out of balance a bit with things like that, like it's almost like inbuilt into the rules. Like something will always replace something else, and something will always get used up in nature, like in that way, like with other animals.
Oh, he's gone. Drew's randomly gone, people.
He's gone.
He's back.
Oh.
Yeah, you're back.
Back without a mic.
Yeah, you're back, but your mic doesn't sound good, man. But yeah,
oh, can I just add on like this topic? I went to the cinema the other day, and it looks like there's going to be a new David Attenborough documentary style film that he's releasing, all about the oceans. I think it's just called Oceans or something like that.
Nice.
Legend David Attenborough, of course.
Yeah, of course.
And he was saying in the trailer, like, everything that we knew, we thought that the ocean was almost getting to a point where it was past saving. Right. But it's just nature just has this incredible ability to bounce back stronger, like, than anyone could ever perceive, and quicker than anyone could ever perceive. And that's what the ocean seems to be doing at the moment. It's just like bouncing back and being vibrant. And it's just insane, isn't it? Like, even when we do kick it out of place, it just has this ability to restore itself.
That's the thing, and that's why I really don't think that like having nihilistic viewpoints is beneficial, whether it's to you or to anybody or to anything, whether it's like the world itself or to your own self. I think if you are overly nihilistic and essentially being like almost like pessimistic about anything, if people that don't know what being nihilistic is, sort of like, you know, being half glass full about everything.
Yeah, being doomsday.
Yeah, everything's doomed. The world's doomed. What's the point? Everything's rubbish. You know, blah blah blah. Because really, it's just not true. Like fundamentally, I just don't think it's just not true. Like as you said, the nature will find a way to rebalance itself. Now you could say, yeah, there might be, like, at some point, we don't really know when. At some point, like the dinosaurs, there's a strong possibility that humans might go extinct. We don't know when, we don't know why exactly. And if you're, I could see why somebody that like suffers from existential crises would like, that would bother them, the thought of that, because, you know, our little monkey brains find it hard to sometimes wrap our minds around something like that, you know. A lot of people really struggle with the concept of death, you know, things like that. We all know we're going to face it one day, but it's quite hard, you know, for some people to face that. I just think it's one of those things you shouldn't even worry about it. Just live your life. Who cares, man? You know, like that's why, like, you know, without sounding cheesy, it's just more incentive to just try and make sure you have a good life, isn't it? You know, try and, you know, do something fun every week, you know, or even every day if you can.
Worry about the things you can change as opposed to the things you can't.
Exactly. And the thing is, it's like, like, even if humans do go extinct one day, you know, we don't know when. Could be millions of years in the future. Could be thousands of years in the future. We don't know. But the world will go on. You know, the world will go on. You know, and like, you know, you can. There's no point overly like being dramatic and being negative about these things, you know, because, you know, I mean, you could say, you know, eventually we don't know what's going to happen to the universe one day, but we don't need to. We know we're just hitching a ride, man. Or we're just hitching around this timeline of the universe on this like planet. And really, if you think about it, it's a blessing to be alive because we get to experience all the amazing things that come with being alive. Whether it's, think about, you know, anybody that's listening, think about how much joy you get when you're about to eat your favourite food. Whatever it is you enjoy doing in life, when you're going to go see a movie you've been really looking forward to watching with a mate of yours or your missus or or a family member, going to watch your favourite sporting game, a match you've been really looking forward to, going on holiday. You're like, it's, you know, it's so many amazing things, you know, that like, it sounds super cheesy. It sounds like I'm like some super happy Christian guy. No offence to Christians out there, but you know, you really is, isn't it?
You can feel there's so much out there that you can fill your life with positivity, and you can fill your life with things that to look forward to and enjoy, rather than getting bogged down in things that you don't. I almost think that you could argue that having a nihilistic viewpoint, and don't get me wrong, I don't think it's like one of those things that you necessarily, you know, choose to have a nihilistic viewpoint. I think some people do a bit more than others, but I think it's something that you gradually end up becoming nihilistic, probably maybe because of the company you keep.
like if people that you hang around with, they're all nihilistic. You're probably going to end up a bit nihilistic yourself. Or the sort of things that you absorb, whether it's like the sort of media you absorb, whatever it is. But I would even go as far to say, it's almost like a bit ungrateful. Yeah. And I think we should all practice being grateful.
The thing is, I think nihilism in itself isn't necessarily bad, because you can turn that into a positive thing. Like, take Nietzsche, for example. A lot of his philosophy was based off nihilism, but using nihilism in a way to make yourself better and to
but
really
it was positive.
Those. Exactly. It was to savor those.
So
things.
I would argue that wasn't really nihilistic, because I think being nihilistic is inherently negative. That's what I would argue.
But I would argue he was nihilistic to the point where he thought, he was so, nihilistic about the world in a sense of everything is going to end. Like, what does it matter? And with that freed him to give him the power to be like, you know what, I'm going to live this the best way I can, and almost flipping the script on it.
What you just said though is more like the definition of stoicism. It's that the idea of like, we as humans can't control everything. We're not meant to control everything. That's not the point. What will be. Only focus on things that you can control. You can control how you react to somebody in the moment.
Exactly.
You can control what you put energy into in life. Worry about that. Don't worry about anything that's out of control. Don't worry about whether or not you might die tomorrow. Don't worry about whether or not anybody or anything is going to die tomorrow. What can go wrong? If it's out of your control, it's out of your control. So don't worry about it. But I think Nietzsche's probably most famous quote is obviously that which does not kill you makes you stronger. But I think that's such a positive thing. And I like that quote for so many reasons, because it sort of shows you that through adversity you can become greater. If you live in a padded cell in a padded room all your life, you're never going to end up being really an impressive human being, are you? Yeah. And maybe you don't want to be an impressive human being, that's fine. But I think naturally I think that we like spectacles in life. Yeah. We like watching amazing high level sports games. We like watching high levels of anything, and people that have been through a lot of adversity and are willing to put them, do very, very hard things, with the end result being that then as a result of that, they are bettering themselves as a person. I think that is interesting to us as a species, and I think it's interesting to us, and I think most people at least can naturally respect that as well. I think that's why. Look at the Olympics. It's such a spectacle, and obviously the thing is as well. Let's say like something like the Olympics and athletics. There's something for everyone. You've got the, whether you're into shot put, rowing, sprinting, long distance running, weightlifting, judo, boxing. There's something pretty much for everyone. Javelin. Like, it's very interesting. But regardless of what it is, it's at such a high level. These athletes are almost like they're on the border, almost of like a superhuman. When you watch somebody like when you watch someone like a Usain Bolt in his prime,
truly the best in the world at their craft.
Yeah. When you watch whoever the best weightlifter is in the world at that point, and then they tell you what weight this person's clean and jerking, and you actually think about how heavy that is, and this person's lifting it overhead, it's mind-boggling. When you actually hear about how far that person's like tossed that shot put, it's crazy. You almost like try and get your head around that, and I think especially if you've ever like tried to dabble in that yourself, you appreciate how hard that is. And it's just crazy, man. Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah. I think we're almost like fires, aren't we, as humans? And our perception and our attitude can turn anything into either fuel or water. We can take positivity and use that as fuel to light our fire. We can take negativity and use that as fuel. Or we can look at it in a negative perspective and use that as water to douse our fire.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it. And I think that's the trick as well, as you said, man. It's like, of course, life will always be mixed. So you're never going to have like a purely positive life. But I think one of the tricks is trying to take things that make you feel negative and try and turn that into a positive. And I think that you could do that in several ways. You could find a hobby where you can channel negativity into a strength. So, you know, whether that's art, you can use a negative emotion to make a masterpiece, whether it's a piece of music or a painting, or, you know, sportsmen and women athletes, they will use that negativity to fuel their workouts. And I think as well, you know, it's up to you to an extent how you channel negativity, to an extent. Like, you know, and as I said, I don't think, like, you know, I say it's to an extent, but in general, we all have things in life sometimes, unfortunately, that will make us feel upset. And when I say upset, I mean upset in a very broad term. But how do you process then that feeling of grief? You know, I think that the most useless emotion we can feel is sadness, because sadness sucks energy from you. You know, when someone's sad, and then sadness can sometimes lead into depression and things like that, all you want to do is sort of like mope on the sofa, mope in bed.
Pity.
Yeah. Whereas I think if you can almost get yourself riled up about whatever that thing is that's bothering you, then you can, like, if you can almost like turn it into like a healthy aggression, well, then aggression is like the most energy fueled emotion. You almost feel like, you know, when you're like, sometimes you feel like you've turned an emotional feeling into aggression. Yeah. And you almost like, obviously you don't actually feel like this, but you almost feel like if you actually had the ability to do so, if it wasn't fiction, you almost feel like you could go Super Saiyan. Yeah. Like, do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's almost like you're clenching your fists. You can feel this almost like never-ending, what seems in the moment like this unquenchable, never-ending like rush of adrenaline and energy that almost feels like it can't be quenched. It's almost uncontainable. If you can then go pour that into sport or into art, or into, you know, going to the gym or something, working out something that's really positive for you physically, which then is going to end up making you be stronger, healthier, live longer. Your internal organs are better. As a result, you're going to live a longer and healthier life. You're going to be more useful to the people that love you around you. You're going to be healthier yourself. You know, less likely to get things from diabetes, which in some cases can literally mean you're going to have like limbs amputated, or have like heart issues, which might mean you're going to die randomly of a heart attack. Or you know,
what was the study that you were telling me about the other day about the people that were all weightlifting? I think it was bench press they were doing.
Right.
And they gave them different stimuli.
Yes.
To see what would make them lift the most.
Yeah.
And there wasn't the overwhelming one aggression from like big rugby hits and stuff like that.
Yes. So it was essentially, quite interestingly, it was let me find the study, because I can literally tell everybody,
because that plays exactly into what we're talking about here.
Right. So let me read you guys this study. Right. So let's have a look, guys. Today's study had pro rugby players test their 3 rep max squat after watching 8 different video clips before their workout. The clips were comedy, which were gags from the comedy program The Big Bang series.
I like the idea of people sat in the gym like just giggling to themselves.
Yeah, I'd say like, yeah, that's not. I don't feel like I love comedy. I've always loved comedy. I would go as far as to say as comedy was one of my first loves, along with, you know, music, dinosaurs, like fantasy / sci-fi and comedy. I'd say they were like my first big things.
They're the building blocks, man. They're the pillars.
Yeah, I mean, I've always loved comedy. One of my earliest memories were, funny enough, I was showing you clips of The Fast Show earlier on. Anybody that grew up in the 80s and the 90s, you know, Harry Enfield and Chums, The Fast Show, you know, always was a massive fan of Rick Mail. Rest in peace, Rick Mail. You know, Bottom, The Young Ones. You know, that old school British humour I loved, but not just British humour. You know, I think like most people of my generation absolutely loved like anything Jim Carrey touched. As far as I was concerned, just turned to gold.
The GOAT.
I still think Dumb and Dumber might be the funniest movie of all time. Dumb and Dumber is insanely funny. It's almost like you're freaking gonna end up like getting winded watching it. It's so funny. You know, the Ace Ventura movies, insanely funny. You know, like Liar Liar, like all of them. You know, I loved Jim Carrey.
But it doesn't really make you want to lift, though, does it?
No. Getting back to the point, it doesn't make me feel like pumped to do exercise.
No. At my gym, on the TVs all the time, they just have like quiz shows because they just have like BBC and iPlayer and like ITV, I guess.
Yeah.
So like all the time, it's just like Pointless and The Chase and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And like I find myself.
Why would you put that on?
I don't almost have anything else to do. But man, it definitely takes away from the workout.
If I was the manager of that gym, I would be putting on non-stop. I'd like queue up vid after vid of like motivational clips.
Yeah. Or just even put like some sport on or something.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. But like, yeah, either sport. But I would like, because I would actually find it quite fun to like find each one and, mate, why not?
Yeah.
You're in the gym. People are in the gym. They want to get pumped.
Yeah.
Get them pumped up. Help them. Do them a favour.
I went in the other day and it was Peter Rabbit. The film was on.
Mate.
And I was trying to get a PB and I'm just watching Peter Rabbit.
Talk about taking you out of the zone.
Yeah, exactly.
Peter Rabbit doesn't exactly invoke feelings of, physical
dominance.
Yeah, it doesn't, does it?
No, certainly not.
Man. I mean, I love. What was her name? I love. What was her frickin' name? The lady that wrote Peter Rabbit and all of those famous things. Beatrix Potter. I love Beatrix Potter as much as the next guy, but lived her life in the Lake District. One of my favourite parts of the UK too. Big up Lake District. My family are from there originally. Well, at least a lot of my family are. But anyway, let's get back to the original point. So, yeah, rugby players tested their 3-rep max squat after watching 8 different video clips. One of them was comedy, gags from the Big Bang. Second one was sad clips, including clips of starving children in Africa. Yeah, again, mate, that's not going to make you want to lift. But I was just saying, though, how like sadness is almost like a useless emotion, It almost like, it just doesn't make you feel like you want to do anything.
No.
If anything, I just almost want to just like...
go home.
I just want to go home, yeah. I just want to like sit in my car for a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is not really helpful to anyone. The third one was erotic dancing. So they watched, literally just like, very, very attractive ladies erotically dancing.
Yeah, man.
The fourth one was training motivation videos. They literally showed them. This is literally like the sort of thing that I watch sometimes just to get myself feeling like pumped and ready. They watched UFC and WWE star Brock Lesnar training compilation footage. Man, I've exhausted every bit of Brock Lesnar training footage I can find on the internet in my life. Started from when I was a teenager. When the YouTube first came out, I was watching it. Good. Still watch it now. Luckily, there's some good... I had a Brock Lesnar DVD, his first ever, and I think his only ever like specific Brock Lesnar DVD back in then. It was just called Here Comes the Pain.
Yeah.
And a lot of it was like him training... him sort of like talking about his life story. So it was like him growing up in South Dakota on a dairy farm. A lot of it was like training footage. And then obviously when he became a UFC fighter, there were lots of like clips of him training in that as well. And man, I've watched them all so many times. So that was the fourth one. The fifth one was aggressive videos. And for the rugby players, it was the greatest rugby hits compilation. So essentially it was videos of just the hardest tackles, all of that stuff, just sprinting across the pitches and just taking people out, Jonah Lomu style,
man.
Boom.
I'm not a rugby fan, but that would get me pretty pumped.
Oh man, I love it. The sixth one was a control clip, which was literally just a blank screen. So they'd get people to stare at a blank screen. Yeah, again, I think that would just probably get me to nod off a little bit. That wouldn't really help me. The GOAT pre-workout clip for squat strength was the rugby hits compilation. Although that is perhaps unsurprising considering they were rugby players. So I think that one thing that's important to take away from this is, while it does seem that the most aggressive clip, and the reason I say it was the most aggressive was because it was the one that had the most physical aggression in it. Even the Brock Lesnar clip, while he is known for being a wrestler and a UFC fighter, he wasn't hurting people in the clip. He was lifting weights, he was sprinting, he was doing pad work. There probably were some clips of him, like say taking people down in the gym, but it was in a gym setting. It was sparring. Yeah. Whereas the rugby hits compilation, it's different because it was hard knocks. Yeah. It was brutal tackles essentially. Yeah, the world's most brutal tackles. But with that said, obviously, do take in mind that it was rugby players that are watching it.
I think that just based off what I think I would react to, I think I would get the same reaction.
Yeah.
I think even though I'm not a rugby player, I don't really like rugby. Just anything that like gets you pumped up a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's the kind of thing that is going to invoke the most aggression / power out of you, you know?
Yeah, 100%. So for those that are interested, from the least motivating to the most motivating. So the least motivating clip in sixth place was the sad video. So that seemed to have a negative effect on physical performance, which I'm not surprised at all.
No.
As I said, it's a useless emotion, sadness. Don't get me wrong, it's a necessary one. If we didn't feel sadness, we'd all be a bit like emotionless. But, you know, I think we all probably know people that maybe have a hard time processing sadness, or maybe get sad easily.
Yeah.
Or maybe sometimes even unnecessarily to their own detriment, and they probably wish they didn't. And you can see that it's nothing really but a detriment to them.
Yeah.
So, you know, in that regard, that's why I say sadness. Although it's a necessary emotion, it's a useless emotion. So, yeah, sadness was sixth place, had a detrimental effect on their physical performance. The fifth one was control, so staring at a blank screen. Didn't really do anything for them at all. If anything, it had a negative impact on them. And I can see that because I think you sort of zone out. I think if you're on the way to the gym, you're getting yourself in the mind space. And even if you're not doing anything consciously, I think we all end up, even the process of, say, going to the gym, going to do something, whatever it is you like to do in the gym, or whatever it is that you do for physical, your physical outlet. So it could be running, could be going to the gym. I think you naturally start a process in your head. You're preparing yourself even the moment you wake up that day. It's like, I'm doing this later.
Yeah.
And, you know, you're not letting yourself get in that comfortable zone. I know that for me, if I suddenly had to train, say, on a day off, it would throw me off.
Yeah.
And I think that's because I wouldn't naturally be preparing for it. So I'm training today, for example. I'm prepared for it. You know, I know I'm training today. I always train today. I knew I was training today yesterday. I knew I'm training today for the moment I woke up today. So as soon as I get home, I'm working out, and I'm naturally subconsciously getting myself prepared for that. But I think something all of a sudden like, oh yeah, but now, before you do that, can you stare at this blank screen for 10 minutes? It's almost like a bit of enough of a disturbance to almost like throw me off my game, I think.
Interesting. See, it shocks me a bit, because I'm like, I don't know. I almost think it would help me get in my own head a bit more and actually be more focused.
Do you reckon?
Because I would almost just like use those 10 minutes not thinking, blank screen. You know, I'd use the like 10 minutes being like, right, I need to get this up. I need to, you know what I mean? Almost like going over it in my head and visualizing
like internal
success.
focus.
Yeah, exactly.
That's cool. Yeah, no, that's interesting. I think that I can definitely see how that would happen and how that would be a possibility. I think for me personally, I don't know if it's my age, being a dad or something, I think it would almost make me feel a bit sleepy.
Right.
I think that I'd almost like want to drift off.
Yeah. 10 minutes is a long time, to be fair.
Yeah. And then in third place, so the third most useless like video was the in terms of sports performance, was the humorous one. It was so there wasn't so much to a detriment as the control or the sad, but the humorous clips didn't seem to have any impact, beneficial impact on the training for the rugby players, which I'm not really surprised at. Yeah, again, I think it would almost like throw you off. Yeah, you know, a little bit. In third place, so the third most, you know, pump-inducing one that was getting you most fired up. In third place was the erotic clips. So watching the rugby players that watched the erotic clips, it did seem to have somewhat of a positive impact on their training performance, and I think you can see why. You know, gets your libido going, gets your hormones pumping,
the testosterone.
Yeah, and I think, you know, it's one of those things. Our minds can't really differentiate, I think, between, say, watching an erotic clip and that primal evolutionary need to mate. Yeah, and obviously to mate, you have to be competitive to an extent. You know, at the end of the day, for all of you out there that are listening, that say men that have a missus, whether you think of it like this or not, you out-competed any other men that was interested in that woman for your mate. You know, you've bagged her. Well, you know, in some way or another, you've bagged her, guys. You know, you've bagged her. Well, fair play.
Boom.
You know, I'm sure there's other guys out there that would have been more than happy to have been a fella for whatever reason, you've outcompeted them. She's chosen you. Bada bing, bada boom. So I think that thing probably turns on in your head a little bit when you watch something erotic.
Yeah.
You know, as I said, your brain can't differentiate between an actual woman that you want to court and just that process being turned on when you see an attractive member of the opposite sex.
Yeah.
You know, being erotic.
Yes, being seductive.
And it evokes a sense in you of like, okay, it's time to compete. It's time to turn on my hormones.
It's game time.
Your testosterone's probably going to raise a little bit naturally, and you're ready. You're ready to show what you can do.
Show who's boss.
Yeah, show what you can do physically.
Yeah,
literally, man. That's what you do in the gym, right? The second most helpful clip was the training footage. So the Brock Lesnar training compilation got people very fired up. Again, not surprised to that at all.
Can I be honest, man? Don't know if it would do it for me.
Really?
I don't know if it would do it for me. I think I'd almost just lose a bit. I'd almost just be like, if I was just sat there watching someone else work out for 10 minutes, I would almost just be like, I would rather that was me. I would rather I was the one that was working out.
But you could use that to pump you up as well,
I suppose.
See, what I like about, because I definitely react very positively to watching like a good training compilation of someone like Brock Lesnar. And let's say I've literally done it loads of times. Is it gets me hyped? It gets me pumped. Like in terms of like I want to do what he's doing in the video. And I'm almost like using him as almost like maybe like a blueprint or like as like inspiration. You know what I mean? Because he's whenever you watch like a hyper athlete as well, who is like super strong but super fast and fit and agile and athletic, you know, when it, like to me that just gets me inspired to also want to be like that, you know. So it just gets me pumped up. But no, fair enough. It doesn't. The thing is, different strokes for different folks, isn't it? But yeah, the number one clip that seemed to have the most beneficial sort of response from the rugby players was the aggressive rugby hits compilation. So literally was just brutal tackles, hard tackles. The men went in there and they hit the heaviest numbers. They hit the best squats.
Do you know what I'd love to see as like a side note to that experiment is one with music. Whether that's like, say you had, again, a control where you're not listening to music. Maybe you had one where it's like thunderstorm sounds / some sort of.
I'm
like
sure there
noise.
are studies out there like that.
Yeah, like metal music, rap music.
But again, I think
music, classical music.
I think all of these things do depend on the individual. Yeah. But you then would have like an in general, and that's why I think it's important to have these generalizations, because I think sometimes people get a bit annoyed with generalizations because they're like, well, that's not always the case, and I don't think anybody is ever trying to say it's always the case. Of course, things vary from individual to individual, but it's beneficial to us to have generalizations because it does help us. You know, there's nothing wrong with saying in general men are taller than women. It's not really helpful for someone to say, I know a girl that's taller than her boyfriend. Of course you do, mate. You know what I mean? It's not really the point, is it? You know, like there are things that in general people seem to like more than other things. There are things that in general that seem to be the case more than in other things, you know. So I think, you know, it seems like in that case, obviously that was a generalization. I'm sure there might have been one oddball in that group of rugby players that actually did find the blank screen the most motivating. But in general, it was the hard hits one. Yeah. I'm sure there was maybe there's even some absolute psychopath that found the clip of the African children. Right? You'd have to be a freaking weirdo. Yeah. But you know what I mean?
Maybe he's using it as anger at the world.
And I think the reason I obviously bring that up is because you were saying about music. I think with music, it really depends what your favourite music was. Yeah. I know that obviously two types of music that I do seem... I see are used a lot by people to get them very pumped up are either metal or like aggressive rap. Yeah. You know, I know that like you know, a lot of people that are like very into training, they do like to listen to like a lot of aggressive rap and hip hop. So like, you know, the most aggressive rap from back in the day, you know, like the early 90s stuff that tended to be almost like a bit, almost like, you know, describing violence and stuff like that, which again, you can see why it's primal. And like, you know, metal is very visceral. Metal is very primal. I know for me, I know it massively helps me out, man. I want to go into the gym. I want to listen to some freaking metal. Not all the time. I do sometimes listen to other stuff. But, you know, yeah, I want to listen to all of my favourite metal music. I want to listen to old school Max Cavalera, Sepultura. I want to listen to Metallica. I want to listen to Megadeth. I want to listen to Death, you know, the old school band Death. I want to listen to a lot of metal, man.
Whenever I, like, forget my headphones for the gym, or like that time when they stop working, I can instantly feel such like a detriment to my workout. Like without having music, it does make like a substantial difference.
You just want to get in that zone, don't you?
Notice, yeah.
You just want to get in that zone.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I know. I mean, that's one of my favourite things as well about having a home gym, having a really decent home gym, is that obviously like I have my stereo in the gym. It's always my playlist. Whatever I want to listen to that day, I'll you know, sometimes I'll just put on like a playlist on shuffle. Sometimes I'll queue up specific tracks sometimes, you know. And then it's just like letting rip, you know. Sometimes I usually do listen to that sort of genre of more like alternative, heavier music, but it depends because it's not always just like heavy metal, thrash metal, death metal. Sometimes it could be grunge music. I got like a grunge playlist, so I'll listen to grunge music. Sometimes it's new metal. I got a new metal playlist that I'll listen to. Lots of sort of more like obscure new metal bands that I've gotten to like over the years, like bands like Floor and things like that are just really freaking good, you know. Yeah, and obviously all the classics like Deftones and stuff, even though Deftones don't actually technically like to be classed as new metal, but that's sort of by the by. But it does sort of vary, but it's usually more guitar, bass, drum centric music with distortion in some way, you know. Yeah. But what's your favourite music to work out to, man? Rap
usually, but then I'll chuck in stuff like Rage Against the Machine, some Linkin Park, bands like that, maybe some shoegaze, some heavy shoegaze, you know. But for the most part, it's usually like rap, like, and people sort of like J. Cole, maybe here and there, people that are going to make me feel pumped up, you know, people that are going to make me feel like, yeah, I'm about to do this. That's how I want to be, you know. I want to be hyped. Yeah. And that's just what
I think one thing about rap is it's very almost like self-promoting. I can see why some people would like that would help them, because you need to be confident in the gym to do things that are hard. Yeah. You can't go into a set of weights or go into like a hard run on the treadmill with the idea of, I don't think I can do this. Yeah. Like Mark from Peep Show. That's just not helpful to anyone. No. That's certainly not helpful to you. And you're the one that's trying to do it. Yeah. You know, what you want to do is like, I'm going to crush this. And
a lot of rap is made to make you feel like the man. And that's exactly the sort of way you want to be feeling when you're about to pick up something heavy.
And I would say with metal music and with heavier music, it's not necessary to make you feel the man, but it's the sense of overwhelming aggression. Yeah. Like, and as I said earlier, because aggression is such an energetic emotion, it's the most energetic of all emotions. I just harness that aggression into just pure energy. Just pure energy. You know, it's just like, you just feel like bored. It's like a weird feeling, because I feel like to be successful in the gym, you have to have like a lot of focus. You have to be really focused, especially if you're like, say, weightlifting, because you have to be focusing on what you're doing, and you have to have good technique. But it's like a controlled focus mixed with all this like raw aggression, and that's probably maybe even a skill in itself that it has to learn. And I don't know if it's like something that always came naturally to me, or if I just, without really thinking of it, I just trained myself to be better at it as I got older. Yeah. Because I've been training in the gym since I was 15, and obviously I'm now 35. But I just think it's almost like the music's making me feel super aggressive, and I'm channeling that while feeling very focused. Yeah. And very, like, it's like I'm feeling very positive and very focused. So I don't ever go into a set thinking, I'm not sure if I can do this. Yeah. If I do feel like that, I won't do it. You know?
It's funny how when it's like so much different depending on the exercise as well. Like if I was going to go do cardio, if I was going to go run a 5K or like a half marathon or something like that, I wouldn't necessarily be listening to the same music that I'd be listening to in the gym.
I agree.
Like, it might even be more stuff like Ventura Highway, stuff like that. That's just going to make me feel good. And be like, you know what? This is just going to count down the minutes.
And I would say, because I haven't run on a regular basis in a long time, and I've never been a long distance runner. I'm a heavier guy, and I'm like a heavier set guy. So long distance running doesn't come naturally to me. But I did go through a stage of years where I'd run like 3 5Ks every week, and I'd run. I'd basically, on the days I wasn't weight training, I'd run a 5K, and on my headphones, I would find it more beneficial sometimes to even listen to stuff that was a bit more like emotional. Yeah, do you know what I mean? Yeah, like stuff that was more emotive, even something that could be like, if you leave me now, you'll take her. Because I feel like when you're running, for some reason, it's like it's a different sort of energy. You don't need that like in the moment energy. No. it's almost like you're getting it out and you're getting into the music, and it's sort of like it's distracting you from the movement, from the feeling of exhaustion.
It's whatever,
you're getting into it, but it's still enough energy
yeah,
to keep you going.
You know how when you go to sleep, if you need to wake, like if you're checking you're asleep, you pinch yourself because there's such a sensation that just takes your mind off of whatever's there. You're only focusing on the pain. Music when you're running is almost similar to that, where you're taking your mind off of the running and the numbness of it, and like instead you're just focusing completely on whatever the music is. You need whatever stimulus is gonna occupy your mind the most.
Yeah.
You know? So it makes sense why it would be something emotional, something that gets you almost feeling it a bit more.
Yeah, and I also think that if you listen to, say, something like, for any of you metal aficionados out there, you'll know what I'm on about. If you listen to something like Blackened by Metallica when you're running, it almost actually makes you like blow your load too early, so to speak.
Yeah.
You know, definitely. Like the worst thing I want to do when I go out for, like, if you're going out for like a long distance run, is to listen to something that gets you so hyped up for the first like 5 to 10 minutes of that run, that then afterwards you almost crash. Yeah. Because like Blackened by Metallica, it's got like this infamous like really fast thrashy riff at the beginning of the song. It's the first track on the Injustice for All album. And it's like dun 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 dun, and then the drums come in, and it's just mental, and then everything else comes in. It's just this absolute onslaught. But I feel like almost like I would just crash after the song. Yeah. Whereas you don't want to crash. That's the last thing you want. That's good. That's good when you're, say, doing like a heavy weight session, because you can channel all of that aggression into like one set, and then you can rest again for a minute or two, and then you get you hyped up again for that next set, and then rest again. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like you're controlling that a bit more. Whereas in running, that's the last thing you want.
My friend Rob, who I've told you about before, freak of nature, that guy. He went and did a marathon like a week ago, and he told me he just didn't bring headphones. Mental. He just like didn't listen to any
psychopath.
Music. Just pure like
psychopath.
He said he raw dogged it straight.
Mate, that's respect. Respect, Rob.
It's crazy. It's crazy. He told me that last time he did a marathon, he drove everyone up to Scotland, did the marathon, then drove everyone home straight away. So what's wrong with you?
Mate, you'd think his legs would have been like unable to function.
Mate, and his mind. You would think that you'd be fried after that. You just want to like sort of sit in the back of someone else's car and be like, oh man. Or at least go to bed and then go back the next day.
Mate, I've got a lot of respect for this guy.
Mate, it's crazy. It's crazy. I don't know how he does it, but somehow that guy is just mentally fortified.
Yeah. It's funny, you saying about Linkin Park. I would say for me, something like Linkin Park would be the perfect running music.
Yeah, definitely.
Because it's not too aggressive.
Yeah.
It's not blow your load aggressive.
Yeah.
It's not Blackened Sepultura aggressive. But it's, you know, it's got the feels. It's got emotion. Listening to something like Numb, listening to, you know, whatever the track is, you know, take everything from the inside, or like, Easier to Run, Numb, all of those great tracks, all those classic freaking Linkin Park tracks. It's like, I was saying, it's almost like they're emotional. They're emotional songs.
And they're very cinematic.
They're cinematic. They're emotional. I can sink my teeth into the content of it. But it's still got that drive, and it's still got that rhythm, and you can like you plant your feet to it really nicely, but you're not going to like peak too early, you know, or anything. You're not going to hit a plateau or peak too early. It's just driving you along, you know. And I think something like Linkin Park is almost like, to me, that'd be like perfect running music.
Yeah, man, definitely.
Yeah,
definitely.
Right, let's have some more just cool facts to finish off the show. So this one was sent. This was a fact that was sent to me by Hen from Shoot the Moon, Henry Wheeler. So Hen, for people that don't know, he was actually on the pod a long time, probably about 2 years ago now. He came on with his mate Joe Warren. I know Hen and Joe for a long time, and always knew Joe a little bit better back in the day. They were the year above me and Drew and Josh in Haygrove. They're in a ska band called Shoot the Moon. You know, big sort of following. At least in the local scene, but I think in the whole sort of southwest really, and probably beyond as well. Certainly done very well for themselves. But yeah, Hen, he sent me this the other day. He said, "Cal, I know that you'll like this fact. You always talk about bears." I was like, "Damn straight,
nice. Already I'm sold, man.
Mate, sold. Bears, boom. We've already had what's that one bear fact today?
Yeah.
That was polar bears. This one is grizzly bears.
All right.
So yeah, Hen sent me this really cool fact. There's a grizzly bear that's known as the boss,
I've seen this.
Have you? He's just emerged apparently from hibernation in Alberta. Alberta's Lower Bow Valley. So Alberta is in Canada. The boss is a 650-pound grizzly bear, and it's the region's undisputed alpha, famous for feasting on other bears. It survived 2 train collisions and fathered around 70% of the local cubs.
It's crazy.
Literally a boss. Yeah, he's been hit by a train twice, people. That's like when you hear those mental stats of like people that have been hit by lightning twice or like won the lottery twice. It's like the what's the word I'm looking for? The probability of that happening is like next to none. Yet it still happens. Yeah. The boss lived through what would be fatal for most bears, not once, but twice. He survived 2 train collisions in the Banff National Park, an almost unheard of feat. Most bears that are hit by trains don't make it, but the boss literally walked it off. He's fathered most cubs in the area. The boss has fathered over 70% of the cubs in his range, using his size and strength to outcompete rival males. His dominance has left a major genetic imprint on Banff grizzly population. He's over 20 and he's still on top. 20 is quite an old age for a bear.
Yeah, man. I think most alphas would have been sort of pushed aside by them, wouldn't they?
Yeah. At over 20 years old, the boss is still the dominant grizzly in Banff. Boom. Despite competition from younger bears, none have been able to take his place at the top. He's nicknamed the boss for a reason. Researchers call him the boss because he's the undisputed alpha male in the Banff region. He's bigger, he's tougher, and he's more dominant than any grizzly bear out there.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. Respect to the boss. May your reign continue. You are a friend of the pod. As is, of course, Hen. Always a friend of the pod. Thanks for always listening in, man. You are appreciated. You, of course, are also...
the boss has joined.
One of the friends of the pod. And here he is, Alfonso himself. Returned from the depths of the darkest abyss.
I've actually been here the whole time.
How's it going, man? Drew's back.
I've actually been here the whole time listening to you. Yeah, and I would chip in every now and again, and I just thought you were ignoring me because you were like so deep into the story, and then I realised you just couldn't hear me.
Mate, that's hilarious. So for people that are listening, especially if you just tuned in, so about 20 minutes ago, maybe even longer than that, Drew just disappeared from our screens, right? So Drew, and I couldn't hear him. And he disappeared. And he's literally only just popped back up again. So I think it's actually been about half an hour, probably. Actually.
Yeah, man,
we had that whole chat, didn't we?
I've been listening.
Yeah, we chatted that whole chat about like motivation and like those clips that were showing people.
Yeah,
and music.
The rugby players in the gym.
Yeah,
and
we were talking about Nietzsche and everything before that. And
oh man, Drew, yeah, I've heard all of it.
You've only just popped up to us then. We couldn't hear you or see you. We weren't blanking you, man. We weren't blanking you.
Did you have anything in particular that you wanted to add over that time, man?
Just the only thing, it was like I know that when you said about music, what music you listen to and that, but I was thinking of it more from a music perspective of like if I'm trying to learn a song or if I'm like getting pumped to record a song or play guitar or something, I watch like videos of people playing like amazing like solos or like Tommy Emmanuel.
Steve
and that proper pumps me up to play guitar better. So it definitely
that's like the equivalent of watching the Brock Lesnar training footage.
Yeah. So I was trying to chip in with that a couple of times, but that was about it.
Well, I can see why that would happen though.
And the other thing as well, like it's weird. You know what you're saying about how much like music motivates you, like in the gym and stuff, like and different types of like what you'll be listening to and stuff like that. I feel a bit weird, is that like because I remember when I was at the gym in Crockton, that's probably the most time I spent like say a good like 4 months or something, like going like often. That was probably my last stint. Sometimes I wouldn't have any music on, which is a bit weird. Like you know, and I find that really strange because like it can proper pump you up and stuff, but like for me I could get and I know from Nathaniel said about his friend who didn't have any headphones like when he was running and like doing that, and I was thinking like I think I could probably do that quite well as well. Like a lot of the times I'd be in the gym and I just wouldn't have any headphones, or you know, or sometimes I'm even like find it weird that like I'll sit in silence and that, and I'm like, Or if I'm like just really into like working and that, sometimes I sit on silence and then I'm like, I should be listening to some music now, and actually have a bit of I
think at the end of the day, do whatever you want to do in the moment. And don't get me wrong, obviously I can work out without music. It's not like I'm like, right, can't work out today.
But you know what I mean? But be super motivational as well. It's
motivational. I definitely can push myself a bit harder, harder, easier. That's the way I'd probably describe it. I can push myself harder, easier. But I do know, so there's a very famous guy, at least in weightlifting circles, called Reg Park. All sort of weightlifting historians will have known him. He was basically Arnold Schwarzenegger's inspiration. And once Arnold Schwarzenegger became a champion himself, he actually trained with Reg Park in South Africa, because that's where Reg Park lived with his wife and his children. And Reg Park, he was one of the most successful bodybuilders and weightlifters of his day, apparently was very, very big on training in silence. And it was almost like one of those things that he had his own gym, and he would not allow music in his gym. And he said that, to him, a gym should be like a library, and you go in there and the same way that when you read a book, you almost want concentration and focus, you should be going there and it should be like a library. You should be locked in. And to him, he said that music would actually take him out of the zone. So he was almost looking at it in this very meticulous way, like he needed 100% of his concentration to be on what he was doing in the gym, and that music would distract him from that. Whereas for me, music fuels that.
I think that's a bit like that for me, because I love music so much. I'll almost get into the music more than what I'm doing. I nearly really need to concentrate to actually I almost take my focus away from it a bit, and I'll be like, this is a banging track, or I love this. Do you know what I mean? But you need to get that feeling and channel it into the actual lifting and stuff. Yeah.
I definitely find myself if I'm listening to a track and I've got to get a 1 rep max, or got a heavy set coming up, I'll wait until the track drops to a chorus or a major bit of the song before I start going.
Yeah, me too.
So in that sense, maybe I'm almost willing the song on more than I should.
Well, I don't know. I think that you're just being cerebral. I think that you just know that that's the part of the track that's going to pump you up the most. But do you know what it makes me think of, Drew? You know how we've talked about before, and we talked to St. Fian about this, but we've also talked about it just ourselves as well. I say, when I listen to music, I see it as more of an emotional connection. So I listen to much more the lyrics and stuff like that, and the message of the song. Whereas you listen to it more in a technical way. You're sort of more breaking apart what the guitarist is doing and stuff like that. But you don't really pay attention to say the lyrics. And often there'll be a song that you've been listening to on a semi-regular basis for 20 years, 25 years, and you still won't even know what the lyrics are. Or you won't know what the song's about. I think that it could be potentially linked to that. So because for me, there's an emotional reaction to a song. As long as I'm listening to a type of music that I know can evoke a certain reaction in me, that will have a benefit to me. Listening, I can just basically pick and choose for what emotion I want, whatever's most beneficial to me in that moment. Whereas I think because you see it more in a technical way and in less of an emotional way, I can see why that would be more of a distraction for you. Yeah,
because I'm listening to it at all.
The last thing I'm thinking when I'm training in the gym is, what chord is that?
Yeah.
I'm thinking, frickin' yes, buddy, I'm fucking pumped. I'm listening to whatever Phil Anselmo or Max Cavalera or whoever it might be, Lane Staley is singing about, and that's frickin' making me frickin' honed in.
Yeah, I'm thinking, how can I recreate that tone on my helix?
Yeah. See, that's not beneficial. That's not beneficial to a workout, is it?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not surprised.
How far is Mike's away from his acoustic at that, mate?
Yeah, mate, that is the last thing I would ever think in a million years, man. Right, we'll leave it there, guys. We'll leave it there. Thanks for listening to another PB. Quite funny, man, that you literally disappeared for half an hour, Drew, and then just popped it back up at the end. It was almost comical. I assumed that you had some mad technical issue and that you just given up on trying to come back. And then I was just about to say, right, we're going to wrap it up, folks. And then suddenly you just saw the little screen saying you were joining, but it was still blank for a little bit. And then you just popped back up again. And it's so comical that you just thought that you were just here with us, but weren't. You were essentially a ghost.
I
You were
was
essentially like a
listening
ghost.
in. I saw everything, heard everything.
You were just like a little ghost to us for half an hour. But yeah, that's quite comical anyway. Yeah, so thanks everyone for tuning in. Remember, if you don't already, please give us a follow on Instagram, Pandora's Box Podcast. Also on our YouTube and Spotify pages. Just type in Pandora's Box Podcast. Give us a like, subscribe, follow, share, all that good stuff. We'd appreciate it, man. We appreciate it. We appreciate every one of you. We'll be back same time, same place next week. Ta-ta for now.
Ta-ta.
Tribal.